London, 1813. Miss Sophia Callington pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the carriage window, watching the elegant townhouses of Mayfair slip past like spectres in the foggy evening. Another interminable London season, her fourth, stretched before her like a sentence of slow torture. "Do straighten up, Sophia," her mother chided from the opposite seat. "The Duchess of Atherley will certainly have eligible gentlemen at her soiree this evening, and you cannot afford to appear slouched and sullen." "I am neither slouched nor sullen, mamma," Sophia replied, though she reluctantly adjusted her posture. "I am merely contemplating the mathematical improbability of finding a suitable match when all the truly eligible gentlemen have been thoroughly examined and found wanting during my previous 3 seasons." Lady Callington's lips pursed into a thin, disapproving line. "Your calculations fail to account for new arrivals to London. The Duke of Ravenscroft has returned from his estate in Northumberland, and I have it on good authority that he intends to secure a bride this season." "How delightful for him," Sophia murmured, smoothing an imaginary wrinkle from her ivory silk gown. "And what fortunate young lady shall be awarded the privilege of becoming the vessel for his ducal heirs?" "Sophia," her mother's scandalized tone brought a flicker of satisfaction. "Such talk is precisely why you remain unwed at 24. A lady does not speak of such matters. A lady thinks of little else, if the marriage market is to be believed." The truth Sophia would never voice aloud was that marriage, as she had observed it among the ton, appeared to be nothing more than a business arrangement, with the unfortunate side effect of binding a woman to a man who would control her fortune, her body, and her future. Her own parents' loveless union had taught her that much. Better to remain a spinster with her modest inheritance than surrender her independence to a husband who viewed her as merely a decorative appendage to his greatness. The carriage halted before the Duchess of Atherley's grand townhouse, where footmen in powdered wigs stood at attention. Sophia gathered her resolve along with her reticule. Another evening of performing the role of marriageable young lady awaited. "Remember," her mother whispered as they ascended the marble steps, "the Duke of Ravenscroft is said to possess £30,000 a year." "Smile, Sophia, for heaven's sake smile." Sophia arranged her features into what she hoped resembled pleasant anticipation rather than resigned dread. The Duchess's ballroom blazed with hundreds of candles, their light reflecting off gilded mirrors and the jewels adorning London's elite. Sophia moved through the familiar rituals, the curtsies, the meaningless exchanges, the careful navigation of social hierarchies, with practiced precision. "Miss Callington, may I present His Grace, the Duke of Ravenscroft," announced Lady Atherley, materializing beside Sophia with a gentleman in tow. Sophia dipped into a perfect curtsy, raising her eyes to assess the much-discussed Duke. Tall and broad-shouldered, with aristocratic features and cool grey eyes, he cut an imposing figure in his immaculate evening attire. "Your Grace," she murmured, "Miss Callington." His voice was deep, his bow perfunctory. "I understand you are something of a bluestocking. Lady Atherley informs me you read Greek." Sophia blinked, momentarily disarmed by this direct reference to her scholarly pursuits, which most gentlemen found decidedly unfeminine. "I do, Your Grace, though I find the Romans more pragmatic in their philosophies." "Indeed," a slight lift of his brow suggested mild interest. "And which Roman philosopher do you favor?" "Seneca, for his insights on anger, though Marcus Aurelius offers wisdom on enduring tedious social obligations with grace." The corner of his mouth twitched. "A pointed observation, Miss Callington." "Not at all, Your Grace. Merely an academic appreciation for Stoicism in all its forms." For a moment, something like amusement flickered in his eyes before the ducal mask resumed its place. "I wonder if you might save me a dance, Miss Callington." "The quadrille, perhaps." It wasn't a request so much as a notification of his intentions. Sophia inclined her head in acquiescence, knowing her mother would suffer apoplexy if she declined. After the Duke had moved on to perform his social duties elsewhere, Lady Callington appeared at Sophia's side, practically vibrating with excitement. "The Duke of Ravenscroft requested a dance. Did you see how he looked at you? This could be the match we've waited for." He looked at me as one might examine a curious specimen at the Royal Society, Sophia corrected. His Grace requires a duchess, mamma, not a wife. There is a distinction. Nonsense. A duchess is the highest position to which a young lady might aspire. Think of the precedence, the jewels, the influence. Think of the obligation to produce heirs, the management of multiple estates, the absolute surrender of self to ducal expectations, Sophia countered quietly. I value my independence too greatly for such a sacrifice. Before her mother could respond, a stir rippled through the assembly. Heads turned toward the entrance, where a new arrival was being announced. Lord Zachary Ashford, Earl of Thornfield. The gentleman who entered stood in stark contrast to the Duke's cool reserve. Where Ravenscroft was all-controlled power and aristocratic hauteur, Lord Ashford moved with a relaxed confidence, his smile warm as he greeted acquaintances. His chestnut hair fell in fashionable waves, and his blue eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed at something Lady Jersey said. The Earl of Thornfield, Lady Callington sniffed, newly inherited the title after his father's passing last winter, a respectable fortune, to be sure, but nothing compared to Ravenscroft. They appear to know one another, Sophia observed as the two men exchanged what seemed to be terse nods across the room. Old rivals from their school days, I believe, something about a rowing competition at Oxford, men and their ridiculous feuds. Her mother dismissed the notion with a wave of her fan. The Earl is known for his liberal politics and unorthodox opinions. He actually spoke in favour of Catholic emancipation in the House of Lords, most improper. Sophia's interest piqued. How fascinating. A nobleman with principles beyond self-interest. Sophia, you will not engage the Earl in political discourse. Focus your attentions on the Duke. The evening proceeded predictably. Sophia danced with several gentlemen whose names and faces blended together in a blur of polite conversation and careful footwork. When the Duke claimed her for the quadrille, she found him to be an excellent dancer, precise in his movements, attentive to the figures, and utterly devoid of warmth. "You dance well, Miss Callington," he remarked as they joined hands to promenade. "Thank you, Your Grace. The compliment is returned. I find dancing rather like chess, a series of predetermined movements executed with strategic purpose." Sophia couldn't help herself. "And what is your strategic purpose this evening, Your Grace?" His grey eyes assessed her with new interest. "Direct, aren't you? Very well. I require a duchess who understands her duties and possesses sufficient wit to manage my households without embarrassing the Ravenscroft name." "How romantic," Sophia murmured, executing a perfect turn. "Romance is the province of poets and fools, Miss Callington. Marriage is a practical arrangement between families of similar standing. On that we are agreed." The admission surprised her as much as it seemed to please him. "Indeed, then you do not harbour girlish fantasies about love matches." "I harbour no fantasies about marriage at all, Your Grace. I find the institution rather limiting for women of independent mind." The dance separated them briefly, and when they rejoined, the Duke studied her with calculation. "Interesting. Yet you participate in the marriage market. One must dance to the tune society plays, must one not, even while recognizing the melody is discordant." Their conversation was interrupted, as the figures of the dance required their attention, but Sophia felt the weight of the Duke's considering gaze for the remainder of the set. When he returned her to her mother's side, he lingered a moment longer than propriety demanded. "Miss Callington, I should like to call upon you tomorrow afternoon, if convenient." Sophia felt her mother's grip tighten painfully on her arm. "That would be acceptable, Your Grace." He bowed and departed, leaving Lady Callington nearly breathless with excitement. "A call, after one dance. Oh, Sophia, this exceeds all expectations." "Please contain your raptures, mamma. He merely wishes to continue our discussion on the pragmatic nature of matrimony. Even better, he sees you as sensible. Dukes value sensible wives." Sophia bit back a sigh. "I believe I shall take some air on the terrace. The room has grown quite warm." Before her mother could object, Sophia slipped away through the French doors leading to the garden terrace. The cool night air was a blessed relief after the stuffy ballroom. She moved to the stone balustrade, gazing out over the carefully manicured gardens now silvered by moonlight. Escaping the matrimonial battlefield, Miss Callington. Sophia turned to find the Earl of Thornfield approaching, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. Up close, his features were even more appealing, intelligent eyes, a strong jaw softened by a hint of humor around his mouth. "I believe a strategic retreat occasionally proves necessary in any campaign, my lord," she replied. He laughed, offering her one of the glasses. "A wise general knows when to conserve her forces. I observed your quadrille with Ravenscroft and thought you might require reinforcements." She accepted the champagne with a smile. "How very gallant. Though I wonder if offering refreshment to a lady you've not been properly introduced to qualifies as a breach of proper conduct." "Indeed it does. Shocking behavior. I count on your discretion." His eyes twinkled with mischief. "Unless you'd prefer I summon a chaperone to oversee our illicit champagne consumption." "That won't be necessary, Lord Thornfield. I find arbitrary social rules rather tedious when no actual impropriety is occurring." "Ah, then we are kindred spirits." He raised his glass in a small toast. "To the tedium of propriety, and those brave enough to question it." Sophia clinked her glass against his, finding his directness refreshing. "You and the Duke appeared acquainted, old friends." Lord Thornfield's expression cooled slightly. "Acquainted, yes. Friends would be an overstatement. We were at Eton and Oxford together. Ravenscroft believes rank should determine worth. I find such notions archaic." "Hence your support for Catholic emancipation." His eyebrows rose in surprise. "You follow politics, Miss Callington." "I read the newspapers, my lord, shocking as that may be." "Not shocking, refreshing. Most young ladies profess interest only in fashion plates and society on dits." Sophia sipped her champagne. "Most young ladies learn early that expressing interest in substantive matters diminishes their value in the marriage market." "And yet you risk such diminishment." "I've long since accepted my value in that particular market is modest at best." The admission came more freely than she'd intended. "The market's loss, then." His voice had softened. "Any man who values a wife solely for her decorative qualities or dowry is a poor investor indeed." Sophia studied him over the rim of her glass. "You speak as though marriage might serve purposes beyond alliance and continuation of bloodlines." The Duke would disagree. "Ravenscroft approaches marriage as he does everything, as a transaction with clearly defined terms and expectations." Lord Thornfield leaned against the balustrade beside her. "I prefer to think 2 people might build something more meaningful together." "How radical," she teased. "Next you'll suggest women should have property rights or the vote." "Both excellent ideas," he grinned, unrepentant. "Though perhaps we should solve one social injustice at a time." Their conversation flowed with surprising ease, touching on books they'd read, the latest scientific discoveries debated at the Royal Society, and the merits of Byron's poetry versus Wordsworth's. By the time Lady Callington appeared at the terrace doors, calling for Sophia, nearly an hour had passed. "Miss Callington, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation," Lord Thornfield said as they prepared to part. "Might I call upon you tomorrow? Perhaps we could continue our debate on whether Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia translates effectively to modern society." "I should like that very much, my lord." Sophia hesitated, remembering the Duke's similar request. "Though I must inform you that the Duke of Ravenscroft has also requested to call tomorrow afternoon." Something flickered in Lord Thornfield's eyes, determination perhaps. "Then I shall call in the morning. I find I'm rather eager to continue our discussion before Ravenscroft can monopolize your attention with his ducal certainties." The following morning, Sophia found herself unusually attentive to her appearance as she dressed for the Earl's visit. She chose a morning dress of pale blue muslin that brought out the deeper blue of her eyes and arranged her dark curls in a simple but becoming style. "The Earl arrives at 11 and the Duke at 4, Lady Callington announced, entering Sophia's bedchamber without knocking. "I've instructed Mrs. Porter to serve the inferior tea for the Earl. We must save the best Darjeeling for his Grace." "Mamma, such blatant calculation is beneath you." Nonsense, it's merely good management. One must allocate resources according to priority. And my preference counts for nothing in these calculations. Lady Callington patted her daughter's cheek. My dear, when one gentleman offers a coronet and another a ducal crown, preferences become immaterial. You've always been practical about marriage. Why develop romantic notions now? Sophia bit her tongue. There was no point arguing that her pragmatism had never extended to accepting marriage as inevitable, merely that if she ever did marry, it would not be for something as ephemeral as romantic love. Yet as she descended the stairs at the announcement of Lord Thornfield's arrival, she felt an unfamiliar flutter of anticipation that had nothing to do with practical considerations. The Earl rose from his seat in the drawing-room when she entered, his face lighting with genuine pleasure. Miss Callington, good morning. Lord Thornfield, how kind of you to call. She took a seat on the settee, her mother positioning herself like a vigilant sentinel in the nearby armchair. I've brought you something. He produced a slim volume from his coat pocket. After our discussion of Roman philosophy, I thought you might enjoy this recent translation of Lucretius. The margin notes are my own, rather presumptuous, I realize, but I thought you might find them amusing if not enlightening. Sophia accepted the book, running her fingers over the leather binding. This is most thoughtful, my lord. I confess I've not read much Lucretius. His materialist views were deemed unsuitable for female education. All the more reason you should read him, he replied with a conspiratorial smile. His argument that understanding the natural world frees us from superstition seems particularly relevant in an age still governed by outdated traditions. Lady Callington cleared her throat pointedly. How fascinating, though perhaps Miss Callington's reading might better focus on more suitable feminine accomplishments. I've always found intelligence the most suitable accomplishment in any person, Lady Callington, the Earl responded smoothly. Your daughter's educated mind does you great credit as a parent. This deftly delivered compliment momentarily silenced Lady Callington, allowing the conversation to turn to more general topics. Throughout their visit, Sophia found herself repeatedly drawn to the Earl's expressive features, the way his hands moved when he spoke passionately about a subject, and most particularly how attentively he listened when she spoke, as though her opinions held genuine value. When he took his leave after the prescribed half-hour, he held her hand a moment longer than strictly necessary. Until we meet again, Miss Callington, perhaps at Lady Westmoreland's musical evening tomorrow. Yes, we shall be in attendance, she confirmed, inexplicably pleased at the prospect. After he departed, Lady Callington sniffed. Well, he seems amiable enough, though his politics are most irregular. Still, an earldom is nothing to scorn should the Duke prove disinterested. You did well enough, Sophia, though I notice you spoke at length about books and ideas. Gentlemen prefer more feminine topics. Lord Thornfield seemed to appreciate our conversation. Men will feign interest in all manner of things when pursuing a lady. But once wed, they expect a wife to confine herself to household matters and social obligations. Her mother arranged the cushions that had been disturbed during their visitor's stay. Remember that when the Duke calls, speak of his estates, his horses, his importance in society. Men of rank appreciate acknowledgement of their significance. Sophia retreated to her room with Lucretius tucked safely in her pocket, unable to resist examining the Earl's margin notes before the Duke's arrival. His handwriting was bold and flowing, his observations both insightful and occasionally irreverent. One notation made her laugh aloud. Here Lucretius essentially tells us that superstitious fear is the enemy of reason, a concept the House of Lords might benefit from considering before rejecting reforms based on tradition. By the time the Duke of Ravenscroft arrived precisely at 4 o'clock, Sophia had reluctantly set aside the book and prepared herself to receive a very different sort of caller. The Duke entered with the confidence of a man accustomed to immediate deference, presenting Sophia with a perfectly proper bouquet of hothouse roses. Miss Callington, Lady Callington, his bow was precise. I trust I find you well this afternoon. Exceedingly well, Your Grace, Lady Callington gushed. We are honoured by your visit, are we not, Sophia? Indeed, Your Grace. You are most welcome. Sophia performed the expected courtesies while noting the contrast between this formal exchange and the easy conversation of the morning. Once they were seated with tea served in the best Wedgwood china, the Duke proceeded to conduct what felt remarkably like an interview. His questions, while politely framed, seemed designed to assess Sophia's suitability for a specific role. You were educated at Mrs. Seymour's seminary, I understand. Yes, Your Grace. For 3 years. And you speak French and Italian, I believe. French fluently, Italian passably. I also read Latin and some Greek. He nodded, seemingly checking items from a mental list. Excellent. A duchess must be capable of conversing with diplomats and foreign visitors. Do you play the pianoforte? Tolerably well, though I prefer the harp. The harp is an elegant instrument, well suited to a duchess. He sipped his tea. And what are your views on household management, Miss Callington? Ravenscroft House employs 38 staff, and my country estate considerably more. Sophia considered her response carefully. I believe in clear expectations, fair treatment, and efficient systems, Your Grace. A well-run household operates like a timepiece, complex internally but presenting only smooth function to the observer. This answer appeared to please him, as he inclined his head slightly. A sensible approach, and your feelings on entertaining. The Duchess of Ravenscroft must host diplomatic dinners, balls, and various social functions throughout the season. I understand the importance of such obligations, Your Grace. Sophia maintained her composed expression despite the growing sense that she was being measured for a role rather than known as a person. You seem remarkably practical about such matters, Miss Callington. Refreshing, when so many young ladies think only of gowns and gossip. I've never found much value in frivolity, Your Grace. No, he agreed, studying her with those cool grey eyes. Nor have I, which is why I find you intriguing. You appear to understand that marriage, particularly in our circles, serves purposes beyond romantic sentiment. I understand its practical functions, yes. The Duke set down his teacup with precision. Then we are of like mind. I require a duchess who comprehends her duties and performs them with intelligence and dignity. In return, she will enjoy all the privileges and comforts my position provides. A fair exchange, would you not agree? Sophia felt her mother's eager gaze upon her. This was, in essence, exactly the transactional view of marriage she had always espoused. Why, then, did she hesitate? It seems eminently reasonable, Your Grace. I thought you would see it so. His expression softened marginally, the closest he seemed capable of coming to warmth. I should like permission to continue calling on you, Miss Callington. I believe we might suit admirably. You are welcome to call again, Your Grace. The words were automatic, expected. When the Duke departed, Lady Callington could barely contain her excitement. Did you hear? He believes you might suit. And so soon. Oh, Sophia, to think you might be a duchess before the season ends. Sophia merely nodded, finding herself unaccountably troubled. The Duke offered exactly the clear-eyed, unsentimental arrangement she had always claimed to prefer in the abstract. Yet something felt hollow in his assessment of marriage as a business contract with clearly delineated responsibilities and compensations. That evening, she found herself returning to Lord Thornfield's book, reading his marginalia with increasing appreciation for his mind and humour. One passage in particular caught her attention, where Lucretius discussed the folly of fearing death. The Earl had written, "We fear most what we understand least. Perhaps this explains society's terror of individuals who think for themselves." Over the following week, Sophia's days fell into a pattern. Lord Thornfield called in the mornings, bringing books, engaging her in stimulating debates, and somehow making even her mother laugh with his good-natured charm. The Duke of Ravenscroft visited in the afternoons, impeccably correct, increasingly proprietary, and utterly predictable in his conversations about her potential role as his duchess. They encountered both gentlemen at various evening entertainments, Lady Westmoreland's musical soirée, Lord and Lady Jersey's dinner party, the Countess of Harrington's ball. At each gathering, Sophia found her attention increasingly drawn to Lord Thornfield's expressive face across crowded rooms, anticipating their conversations, enjoying his sardonic observations about society's absurdities whispered during chance encounters. The Duke, meanwhile, made his intentions increasingly clear through his attentions. He claimed Sophia for the first dance at every ball, sent formal bouquets on appropriate occasions, and spoke to her father regarding her dowry and settlements, all without actually offering a proposal. "He is being most deliberate," Lady Callington explained one evening as they returned from the theatre, where both gentlemen had occupied the Callington box at different intervals. "Dukes do not rush into such decisions, Sophia. He is determining your suitability." "How flattering," Sophia murmured, "to be assessed like a broodmare at Tattersall's." "Sophia, such vulgarity. Is it vulgar to name what is occurring? The Duke evaluates my pedigree, temperament, and potential productivity. Lord Thornfield, in contrast, actually converses with me as a thinking person." Her mother's expression sharpened. "You're not developing a tender for the Earl, are you? Because while he is certainly eligible, the difference between a duchess and a countess is considerable." "I'm developing nothing but a clearer understanding of what marriage to either gentleman might entail," Sophia replied, though she knew this wasn't entirely true. Something had shifted in her carefully constructed worldview, a hairline crack in her certainty that marriage was merely a practical arrangement to be avoided if possible and endured if necessary. The following evening brought the Duchess of Richmond's ball, one of the most anticipated events of the season. Sophia dressed with unusual care in a gown of deep sapphire silk that left her shoulders bare and emphasized the slender elegance of her figure. Pearls adorned her upswept dark hair and matching drops hung from her ears. "You look stunning," Lady Callington approved. "The Duke will be most impressed." "Perhaps I wish to please myself," Sophia suggested, though she couldn't deny a small hope that a certain earl might appreciate her appearance. The ballroom was a swirl of colour and light, with London's elite dressed in their finest. Sophia had scarcely completed her curtsy to their hostess when the Duke of Ravenscroft materialized at her side. "Miss Callington, you look exceptionally well this evening." His grey eyes moved over her with appreciation, if not warmth. "I believe this is our dance." As he led her onto the floor for the opening quadrille, Sophia caught sight of Lord Thornfield entering the ballroom. Their eyes met briefly across the crowded space, and the Earl's widened slightly in admiration before he offered a small bow in her direction. "You seem distracted," the Duke observed as they moved through the figures of the dance. "Forgive me, Your Grace. The crowd is rather overwhelming tonight." Indeed, he executed a perfect turn. "I dislike excessive crowds myself. At Ravenscroft Abbey, one can ride for hours without encountering another soul. I find such solitude conducive to clear thinking." "It sounds magnificent," Sophia replied, though she wondered if such isolation might prove oppressive rather than liberating. "You shall see it for yourself soon enough," he continued. "The Ravenscroft diamonds would complement your colouring admirably." The implication was clear, yet still not a direct proposal. Sophia felt a flicker of irritation at his presumption. "Your Grace speaks as though certain arrangements have been concluded." "Have they not? We understand one another, I believe. You require security and position. I require a suitable duchess. Our temperaments are compatible, our expectations aligned." Put so baldly, it sounded desperately empty. Yet wasn't this precisely the pragmatic view she had always espoused? "You offer a most rational assessment, Your Grace." "I am a rational man, Miss Callington. I believe you value that quality as I do." The dance ended before she could respond, and the Duke returned her to her mother's side with a promise to claim her for the supper dance. No sooner had he departed than Lord Thornfield approached. "Miss Callington, might I claim the next dance?" His blue eyes held a warmth the Duke's had lacked. "Unless you require a respite after the quadrille." "I should be delighted, my lord." She took his arm, noting how differently it felt from the Duke's rigid escort. The orchestra struck up a waltz, and Lord Thornfield led her onto the floor, his hand settling respectfully at her waist as they began to move in the swirling patterns of the somewhat scandalous dance. "You look absolutely breathtaking tonight," he said quietly, "though I suspect you know that already." "Thank you, my lord." Sophia felt an unfamiliar warmth in her cheeks. You're looking rather distinguished yourself. Distinguished, he laughed. What a terribly respectable word. I was hoping for dashingly handsome, or at minimum, not entirely disagreeable to look upon. Would compellingly attractive serve as a compromise? The words slipped out before she could censor them. His eyes darkened slightly as they held hers. Miss Callington, I do believe that's the most encouraging thing you've said to me yet. They moved together with surprising ease, as though they had danced 100 waltzes before this one. Sophia found herself acutely aware of his hand at her waist, the clean scent of his shaving soap, and the way his eyes never left hers. I've been reading Lucretius, she told him. Your marginalia is most illuminating. And here I feared you'd find my scribblings presumptuous. On the contrary, I particularly appreciated your observation about Epicurus's garden as a metaphor for intellectual freedom outside societal constraints. His smile deepened. You know, most gentlemen would find such conversation during a waltz highly irregular. You're not most gentlemen, Lord Thornfield. No, he agreed softly, just as you're not most ladies, Miss Callington. Which is precisely why I find myself thinking of you at the most inconvenient moments. The candor of this admission caught her off guard. Inconvenient moments. During meetings with my steward, while reading the morning papers. In the middle of debates in the House of Lords, when I should be concentrating on corn laws. Sophia felt something shift inside her, a dangerous crack in her carefully constructed armor against romantic notions. That sounds most distracting, my lord. Perhaps you should consult a physician. I fear the condition is terminal. His voice had dropped lower. The symptoms only worsen in your presence. The waltz ended too soon, leaving them standing close together as the music faded. Lord Thornfield seemed reluctant to release her hand. Would you walk with me to the terrace? He asked. Just for a moment, I find I need some air. She should refuse. Propriety demanded it. Yet she found herself nodding and allowing him to guide her toward the French doors leading to the garden terrace, now illuminated by strategically placed lanterns. Other couples strolled the terrace as well, enough to make their presence proper, with sufficient space between groups to allow private conversation. Lord Thornfield led her to a quiet corner near a flowering jasmine vine. Miss Callington, Sophia, he began, then paused. Forgive the liberty, but I find formal address insufficient for what I wish to say. You may use my given name, she permitted, heart quickening at the intensity in his gaze. Sophia, then. He took both her hands in his touch gentle yet firm. I know Ravenscroft has been calling on you with obvious intent. I know he offers a dukedom and all the prestige that accompanies it. You've been discussing me with the Duke. Sophia withdrew her hands, suddenly wary. No, never. But society talks, and his attentions have been marked. Lord Thornfield ran a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. I had planned to approach this with more finesse, at a more appropriate time. But I find I cannot remain silent while he courts you so determinedly. What is it you wish to say, my lord? Zachary, please. He moved closer, his expression earnest. I wish to say that what he offers, position, wealth, status, comes at the price of your spirit, your mind, your very self. Ravenscroft doesn't want a wife. He wants an accessory that completes his collection of ducal necessities. Sophia's breath caught. And what is it you want, Lord Zachary? You, the simplicity of his answer stunned her. Not as a countess, though that would be your title. Not as the mother of my heirs, though I hope we would have children. I want you as my partner, my equal, the person with whom I share not just a name and a home, but ideas, dreams, purpose. This sounds remarkably like a declaration, Sophia managed, her practiced composure faltering. It is. He took her hands again, and this time she didn't pull away. I know we've known each other only a short time, but I've never met anyone like you. Your mind challenges me, your wit delights me, and when I'm with you, I feel as though I've found something I didn't even know I was searching for. The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache with unfamiliar emotion. You speak of feelings, not practicalities. Marriage requires more than sentiment to succeed. Of course it does. It requires respect, trust, shared values, compatibility of temperament, all of which we have demonstrated. His thumbs traced small circles on her hands. But it also requires love, Sophia. At least the kind of marriage I want does. Love, she repeated, the word feeling foreign on her tongue. I've always considered it a pleasant fiction, convenient for poets but irrelevant to actual marriages. And now, his eyes searched hers. Now I find myself questioning many things I once held certain. She drew a shaky breath. You've made me doubt my own convictions, and I'm not entirely sure whether to thank you or walk away. He smiled then, that warm, genuine smile that seemed to reach inside her and unlock something long sealed away. Thank me, definitely. Doubt is the beginning of wisdom, according to Socrates. A laugh escaped her. You would quote philosophy at such a moment. I would quote anything that might persuade you to consider me. His expression grew serious again. I'm not asking for an answer tonight, only that you think about what kind of life you truly want, one where you're valued for your utility or one where you're loved for your very self. From inside the ballroom, the orchestra began tuning for the next set. We should return, Sophia said reluctantly. My absence will be noted. Of course, he offered his arm. But Sophia, think about what I've said, and know that whatever Ravenscroft may offer you in the coming days, my offer stands in contrast. Not a business arrangement, but a partnership founded on mutual respect and genuine affection. As they re-entered the ballroom, Sophia caught sight of the Duke watching them with narrowed eyes. The remainder of the evening passed in a blur of dances and conversations, though her mind remained fixed on Lord Thornfield's words. The following week brought a flurry of social engagements during which both gentlemen's attentions intensified. The Duke sent formal invitations for Sophia and her parents to dine at Ravenscroft House, presented her with a valuable antique necklace that had belonged to his grandmother, and spoke increasingly of, when you are at Ravenscroft Abbey, rather than if. Lord Thornfield, meanwhile, sought her company with equal determination, but vastly different approach. He brought her rare books from his library, engaged her in spirited debates about politics and philosophy, and once, daringly, arranged for them to visit the British Museum with her younger brother as chaperone, where they spent hours discussing the Elgin marbles and ancient artifacts. You actually listen when I speak, Sophia remarked during one such outing. Most gentlemen merely wait for their turn to deliver opinions. Most gentlemen are fools, he replied simply. Your opinions are frequently more insightful than those I hear in Parliament. Why would I not wish to hear them? Such moments accumulated, building a foundation of mutual understanding and respect that increasingly made the Duke's formal attentions feel hollow by comparison. Yet Sophia could not deny the practical advantages of becoming a duchess, the security, the status, the ability to establish herself beyond questioning in society. The decision crystallized during a dinner party at Lord and Lady Melbourne's, where both gentlemen were in attendance. Throughout the evening, Sophia observed how the Duke commanded deference from everyone present, his slightest opinions treated as pronouncements, while Lord Thornfield engaged others in genuine conversation, drawing out shy guests and showing interest in diverse perspectives. When the ladies withdrew to the drawing-room after dinner, the Countess of Jersey cornered Sophia by the tea table. My dear Miss Callington, you've accomplished what many have attempted, captured the interest of both the Duke of Ravenscroft and the Earl of Thornfield simultaneously. Society is positively abuzz with speculation about which you'll choose. I wasn't aware I had been officially offered a choice, Lady Jersey, Sophia replied carefully. Come now, the Countess laughed. The Duke's intentions couldn't be more transparent if he published them in the Morning Post. And Lord Thornfield looks at you as though you've invented sunshine. The only question is which you'll accept when the inevitable proposals come. And which would you recommend? Sophia couldn't resist asking the influential patroness of Almack's. Lady Jersey considered, tapping her fan against her chin. The Duke brings a higher title and greater fortune. Lord Thornfield offers more progressive politics, and if I may speak plainly, a warmer heart. It depends entirely on what you value, my dear, position or passion. The gentleman joined them before Sophia could respond, but the Countess's words lingered. Position or passion, security or happiness, duty or desire. Were these truly mutually exclusive? As the evening drew to a close, the The Duke approached Sophia while she gathered her shawl. "Miss Callington, might I call upon you tomorrow at noon? I have a matter of some importance to discuss." The formal phrasing and serious tone left little doubt about his intentions. A proposal was imminent. "Of course, Your Grace. I shall be at home tomorrow at noon." Minutes later, as she waited for her carriage in the entrance hall, Lord Thornfield appeared beside her. "Sophia," he said quietly, using her given name despite the public setting. "Might I call upon you tomorrow evening? There's something I wish to discuss." Two proposals in one day. The irony did not escape her. "Yes, my lord, perhaps at 7. His smile warmed his entire face. "7 it shall be." That night, Sophia lay awake long into the small hours, weighing her options with the rational detachment she had always prided herself on. The Duke offered security, status, and a clearly defined role. Lord Thornfield offered respect, intellectual companionship, and the unsettling emotion she was increasingly forced to acknowledge as love. She had always believed marriage a practical arrangement at best, a trap at worst. Yet Lord Thornfield, Zachary, had shown her the possibility of something else entirely, a partnership of equals bound by mutual respect and genuine affection. By dawn, she had reached her decision. The Duke arrived precisely at noon the following day, dressed impeccably in a bottle green coat that emphasized his impressive shoulders. He declined refreshments and came directly to the point once they were seated in the formal drawing room. "Miss Callington, I have spoken with your father regarding settlements and found the arrangement satisfactory. Your dowry, while modest, is acceptable given your family's connections and your personal qualities." Sophia maintained her composure despite the unromantic assessment. "You're most generous, Your Grace." "I believe in clarity," he continued. "As my Duchess, you would have certain responsibilities, managing my households, entertaining appropriately, and producing heirs. In return, you would enjoy all the privileges of your position: jewels, clothing allowance, precedence in society, and my protection." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a magnificent diamond ring. "This has been worn by the Duchesses of Ravenscroft for 7 generations. I offer it now as a symbol of our arrangement." Sophia looked at the glittering stone, then at the Duke's composed features. "Before I respond, Your Grace, may I ask a question?" "Of course." "Why me? There are many young ladies of higher rank and larger dowries available this season." The Duke considered this with the same methodical attention he gave all matters. "You possess intelligence without being argumentative, accomplishments without vanity, and beauty without excessive awareness of it. You understand the practical nature of marriage among our class. In short, you would make an excellent duchess, but not necessarily a beloved wife." A flicker of surprise crossed his features. "Affection often develops with time in a well-matched union. I respect you greatly, Miss Callington, and anticipate we would deal well together." Sophia nodded slowly. "Thank you for your honesty, Your Grace. And for the honor of your proposal." She drew a steadying breath. "However, I must decline." The Duke stared at her, genuine shock breaking through his usual reserve. "You decline? May I ask why?" "Because what you offer is a position, not a partnership, a title, not a life, and I find I want more than respect and obligation in marriage." "This is most unexpected." He closed the ring box with a snap. "Has Lord Thornfield made you promises?" "None that would sway a practical mind, Your Grace, but he has shown me that marriage might be founded on more than convenience and duty." The Duke rose, his expression cooling. "I see. Well, Miss Callington, I shall not press where I am not wanted. I wish you happiness in your choice." When he had gone, Sophia felt not regret but a curious lightness, as though she had set down a heavy burden she'd carried so long she'd forgotten its weight. The hours until Lord Thornfield's arrival passed with excruciating slowness. Sophia changed her gown twice, settled on a simple but becoming dress of pale green muslin, then paced her bedchamber until the mantel clock showed 6:30. "The Earl has arrived, miss," her lady's maid announced at precisely 7 o'clock. "He's waiting in the drawing room." Sophia descended the stairs with measured steps, though her heart raced treacherously. When she entered the drawing room, she found Zachary standing by the window, a small bouquet of wildflowers in his hand and an expression of nervous anticipation on his face. "Sophia," he came toward her immediately. "You look lovely." "Thank you, are those wildflowers?" She nodded toward the informal bouquet. "Yes," he offered them with a slightly sheepish smile. "I know hothouse roses are more conventional, but these reminded me of you, natural, unpretentious, beautiful without artifice." She accepted the flowers, touched by the thoughtfulness of the gesture. "They're perfect." "Your mother?" he inquired, glancing around the empty room. "Visiting Lady Westmoreland. My father is at his club." Sophia arranged the flowers in a small vase. "We are unchaperoned, which is most improper." "Terribly scandalous," he agreed, though his smile suggested he wasn't particularly concerned. "Though convenient for what I wish to discuss." "And what is that, my lord?" "Zachary," he corrected gently. "And I think you know." He took her hands in his. "The Duke of Ravenscroft called today." "Yes, sir." "He proposed." "Yes, sir." His fingers tightened slightly around hers. "May I ask your response?" "I declined." The hope that blazed in his eyes made her breath catch. "You did, may I ask why?" "Because he offered a transaction when I find myself wanting a marriage." Zachary's smile was radiant. "Sophia Callington, I came here tonight to lay my heart at your feet, to offer you not a countess's coronet but a life built on mutual respect, shared ideas, and genuine love. I love your mind, your spirit, your courage, everything that makes you uniquely yourself." He dropped to one knee before her, still holding her hands. "I cannot promise you a dukedom or the precedence it commands. But I can promise to cherish you, support your interests, value your opinions, and love you with every fiber of my being for as long as I live. Will you marry me?" Sophia looked down at him, this man who had appended her carefully constructed theories about marriage and love in the space of a few short weeks. "I've always considered myself immune to romantic sentiment," she said softly. "I believed marriage at best a practical arrangement between compatible parties." His expression remained hopeful but uncertain. "And now? Now I find myself hopelessly, irrationally in love with you." The admission felt like stepping off a cliff, terrifying and exhilarating at once. "Yes, Zachary, I will marry you." He rose and gathered her in his arms, his kiss conveying all the emotion words could not express. When they finally parted, Sophia rested her head against his shoulder, marveling at how perfectly they fit together. "My mother will be disappointed," she murmured. "She had her heart set on addressing me as Your Grace." Zachary laughed, the sound vibrating pleasantly against her cheek. "She'll recover when she sees how happy you are. And if not, we'll simply have to name our first daughter Grace, and she can address her as such." Sophia lifted her face to his, reveling in the freedom to show her feelings openly. "You're quite ridiculous, you know." "Completely." "It's part of my charm." He brushed a curl from her forehead. "I should leave before your parents return and find us in this compromising position." "Yes," she agreed reluctantly. "Propriety must be maintained until the wedding." "About that," he captured her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm that sent a shiver through her. "I was thinking next month. Unless you require more time to plan an elaborate affair." "Next month would be perfect," Sophia replied, surprising herself with her eagerness. "I find I'm suddenly impatient to begin our life together." After Zachary departed with a promise to return the following day to speak with her father, Sophia wandered through the silent house to the library. There she selected a volume of poetry she had always dismissed as sentimental nonsense, and curled up in a window seat to read verses about love and devotion with new understanding. Just before midnight, a footman knocked at the library door. "Begging your pardon, Miss Callington, but this just arrived for you by special messenger." He handed her a small package wrapped in plain brown paper. Curious, Sophia opened it to find a slim book of Latin poetry, Catullus, with a note tucked inside. "For the woman brave enough to choose love over convention. Your servant always, Z." Smiling, Sophia closed the book and held it to her heart, watching the midnight moon cast silver light across the garden. She had received 2 proposals today, one expected, one a revelation. And in choosing the unexpected, she had found not just a husband, but a future filled with possibilities she had never allowed herself to imagine. The practical Miss Callington, who had once viewed marriage as merely a transaction, had discovered something far more valuable than security or status, a love worth risking everything for and the courage to embrace it.